Can you even see the board?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Get out.
Okay.
Want me to sit down? You can sit.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. So we found out you were not the only one, and I had a couple of other students. With IXL, sometimes not letting you to put your answers in.
Yeah.
So we think that when you click on the link, it opens up a web browser inside Schoology, and for some reason that's not working well. You can always follow that link, open up a web browser like in Safari or Chrome on your iPad, and type in just go to IXL.com.
Oh, so instead of going through Schoology, should I just go straight to IXL?
Yeah, there's a glitch in Schoology.
Oh.
Sometimes it allows, I don't have a problem on my iPad. I don't have a problem on my laptop, but you guys are having problems on your iPad. So there's some glitch in Schoology. Just go to, you can always just follow that link and bring it over to just IXL.com and do it that way.
Okay.
If you look at the top, it'll say like H.2, like today is H.2 distributed property. You just log into IXL through a web browser, type in H.2 distributed property, it'll open up that practice.
Okay.
There's a ton of other practice in there too. Don't be limited to just the math I'm making you guys do. There's lots of other math there. I know, exciting, social studies and science, and there's a lot of other things there. You know what skills you don't feel comfortable with in class. I don't. I am giving you kind of a condensed 3-week review and kind of preview of stuff that you're going to see in 8th grade this coming year. It doesn't matter if you're going to go into if you're going into pre-algebra, or if you're going into Algebra 1, or if you're going into Algebra 1 Honors. At some point you're going to see this material, and it's really important to know. The first week, that stuff needs to be automatic. That stuff you have to get really, really fast. That is order of operations, that's integer math, that stuff you're not probably going to review ever again, but you're expected to know it like cold. You know, like your times tables and your addition and your multiplication, division and subtraction stuff. You need to know that stuff. The stuff that we're doing this week was introduced to you at some point this year, and we're going to review it. And the stuff next week is kind of a preview. If you haven't seen it this year, you're going to see it. And if you have seen it this year, you're going to review it and have like a good idea of what's coming in the fall. But IXL, you have the program for a month. There are a ton of things to review. Say you didn't do so great in probability. Say you didn't do so terrific in word problems, which we are going to do on Friday. Say you didn't do so great in geometry. Go ahead and work on that and practice it. It's there for you to use. So if you go to IXL.com and log in, you'll be able to see all those extra skills. And I highly recommend you do them. You know, even 10 minutes a day is better than no minutes a day. Okay? And really it's all driven by you and how much effort and time that you want to put into it. Having said that, you guys do great. Getting tons of emails from IXL saying people are getting certificates left and right. You can see it times how many minutes and how many questions you do, and you get like little points and stuff, and it's really cool. But yeah, you guys did a really good job this past week. I was pretty impressed. So you guys ready for this week? Today opened up distributed property. So you're going to see, let's see. Distributive property today. Why are we not working? Switch. Tomorrow, you're going to see combining like terms. And then you're going to, tomorrow, put those two together to learn to simplify equations and expressions. Wednesday, you're gonna see 1 and 2 step equations. And as an extension, 1 and 2 step inequalities. Thursday, you're going to see multi-step equations, and that includes variables on both sides of the equation and what to do and how to simplify that and get an answer. And Friday is all about word problems and translating the information from word to numbers to find an equation and then solving for that. And then you'll have a quiz. So that's what you're going to see today. I'm going to go over very briefly how to do some of these. Did you guys see inequalities last year?
I don't remember them, but yeah.
Okay.
Just when I don't have a functional solution. It's like, you just simplify it.
And some of the videos that you're going to see this week are me. You get to hear my lovely voice on some of the videos.
Some of the voices were just strange.
I no, the
They were.
first like on day 1 and day 2, I like couldn't even listen to them because like they were just
Cringy.
so I like couldn't stand it.
Well, the hard part about also finding Khan Academy videos is finding the ones where he doesn't go off on a tangent.
No, it was like the
100
ones
there's
where
a
they were
couple
like
of
from like 2008, and they were like they were like this guy that was standing in front of a whiteboard and he was just pointing at stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
were-
Yeah, but they work though. They work. I'm making better ones. But this week you get to hear me on a few of them. So, and next week is probably going to be all me because there aren't a lot of resources that I like that actually focus on the different skills that I want you to work on. So, takes a while for me to record myself. Takes a while for me to do this. This is tough for me. So, yeah. All right. Distributed property. Really bad at writing on this. When you have an expression with parentheses, it just means that everything inside the parentheses shares a common factor, and that common factor has been pulled out and put on the side. Always remember that any number or letter touching a parenthesis always means multiplication. So you don't have to put a little times in there. If I want to expand this out, I'm going to multiply the 3 into the parentheses, and I want to identify the terms that I'm going to multiply it into. And this is where addition and subtraction turn into whether or not it is a negative or a positive number. Okay, so 3 doesn't have anything in front of it, so it's going to be a positive. So positive 3 times a positive x, because that x has nothing in front of it, gives me 3x. Positive 3 times a negative 1, that's where that minus 1 becomes a negative. 3 times a negative 1 becomes a negative 3. And that's my answer, 3x minus 3. You can distribute in letters as well. So the 2x gets distributed into all of the terms in the parentheses. And remember, terms are identified by whether or not it's addition or subtraction on either side. 4 plus 5x, those are 2 separate terms. So the 2x times a 4 gives me 8x, plus 2x times a 5x gives me 10x squared. Remember from exponents yesterday, or last week, x times x gives you x squared, not 2x. And that's my answer. Sometimes you can distribute from the the other way. Doesn't matter what side the parentheses is on, or what side the term is on the parentheses. It can be on the left, it can be on the right. You're just still gonna distribute into whatever it's attached to. Because this is a -4, I'm gonna identify that with a times. This is a -4 and not a -4. So -4 times a 3x gives me -12x. And a -4 times a +4 gives me a -16. And that's my answer. Okay. You can use the distributed property as well when you're looking for area. The area of a rectangle is base times height. So if I have something, that side is x plus 4, and that side is 3. The area of my rectangle is base times height. My base is x plus 4 times my height, which is 3. And I can distribute in. 3 gets distributed into both of those, and I get 3x plus 12. That's my area. You guys remember that? Just give you one more example to show you. Area is equal to base times height. Area is equal to 2x times x plus 7. Area is equal to 2x squared plus 14x. Okay? Day 2 is combining like terms. So sometimes you're going to get an expression that looks like this. So you have some terms that just have numbers. You have some terms that have numbers and letters. You need to identify what the terms are, and you can combine those terms and simplify the expression. When you are identifying your terms, the one thing you need to keep in mind is that this no longer is 4 plus 4x plus 3x minus 2. If I'm going to break it down into its individual parts, I'm going to move the sign with the term it's attached to. So 4 is one term. Positive 4x is another term. Positive 3x is another term. And negative 2 is another term. Then I can rearrange. 4 minus 2 plus 4x plus 3x. If I move the sign with the term, then I will have the correct operation at the end. And I've done it correctly. So 4 minus 2 is 2 plus 7x. And that's my answer. Simplified. If you remember that when you're identifying your terms, you want to identify whether it's a positive or negative.
Yeah, it's just what I was gonna ask.
So this no longer becomes minus 2, this becomes a negative 2 as the term. Okay. And when I rearrange it, this is 4, negative 2, positive 4x, positive 3x, then the operation becomes, the operation is correct. Okay. So you want to make sure that when you move them, you move the sign with it. That's something that trips up a lot of people with combining like terms. If you take a step back away from the fact that that's an expression and just like a whole bunch of M&Ms on a table, some are blue, some are green, some are red, some are yellow, You rearrange them according to their colors, move the sign with it, and then you end up with a correct operation. You end up with a correct simplification of your expression as well. All right. Do the same thing with this. This is a 5. 5n plus 4 minus 2n minus 2. I want to identify my terms. So I have a positive 5n, a positive 4, a negative 2n, and a negative 2. I'm going to rearrange them where I have my like terms near each other, and then I can simplify. 5n minus 2n is 3n, and 4 minus 2 is a positive 2. And my final answer is 3n plus 2. Doesn't matter how many terms I have, I can simplify if I've got like terms in here. So I identified, I have a positive 60 and a negative 30. Put those together. I have a minus 12x and a minus 2x, or a negative 12x and a negative 2x. They're already together, so I don't need to move them around. And then a 40y. These I can combine, those I can combine, and that one stays by itself. So 60 minus 30 is 30, minus 14x, plus 40y. When we have something, when we simplify it down and we still have 3 terms, we have that temptation to want to make it smaller, but we can't. Because y, anything that has a variable y, is one term. It's different than anything that has a variable x. That's different than has a variable x squared. So you want to make sure that the variable or the terms are alike. That is as simple as I can make that expression. Now let's combine them. Sometimes you have something like this. And the first thing I want to do is I want to look to see if there's anything that I can distribute. That should be your first step. If I have parentheses, I want to get those parentheses gone. I want to extend it out before I simplify down. So I'm going to carry my 2w down. I don't want to forget about it. And I'm going to expand that 2 in. And 2 times w is 2w. 2 times 4 is 8. Then I want to look to see if there are any terms that I can combine. And I have a 2w and another 2w. And I can combine that into 4w plus 8. And that's my answer. Sometimes I get crazy ones. Just expand first. Do a double distribution, or distribute twice. So this is one distribution, and this is another distribution, and they're separated by that positive there. So I want to distribute the 4x into this, and then distribute the 3x into that term. 4x times 5 is 20x. 4x times 4x is 16x squared, and then a plus, because my 3x is also positive. 3x times 2x is 6x squared, and 3x times a negative 7 is a negative 21x. Now I can see if I can combine like terms. So I have an x term here and an x term here. That's 20x minus 21x, and then a positive 16x squared and a positive 6x squared. Put those together. And then combine this. I end up with a negative x. Combine this. Plus a 22x squared. I can clean it up a little bit. This is technically correct, but I can put it in a form where my leading variable or number isn't a negative. 22x squared minus x is the same. So it just cleans it up a little bit. Okay. Now I can use the distribution, or sorry, I can use the combining like terms to solve for perimeter. So we know that the perimeter of any rectangle inside one or length plus width, or length plus height plus height. So it's base times, or base plus the height, plus base plus the height. You're just adding up all the sides. And 2L plus 2W. So if I make this my length and this my width, we have 2 times x plus 5 plus 2 times x minus 2. And then I can just distribute, and then I can combine like terms to find out what the perimeter of my rectangle is. 2x plus 10 plus 2x minus 4. Combine the two 2x's and I get 4x. I have a 10 and a minus 4. Gives me a positive 6. You guys, did you do this past year? Have you seen it? Okay. So nothing really new. You're just going to practice it and go a little bit further with it. So you also get a treat this week. I have a couple of former students' videos on there. So I think you see a little bit of Cole and Hunter's videos that they made for me a couple years ago. And I think I have Anaya and Lauren. And a couple more. So Wednesday you're going to see 1 and 2 step equations. As a review, one-step equation with addition. So x plus 4 equals 16. I need to get x by itself. So I look at the operation that I've attached my number to x with, and it's positive for addition, so I subtract it from both sides. This is subtraction. So in order to get n by itself, I want to add 2 to both sides. I get n is equal to -1. Do you guys remember how to do one-step equations pretty well, right? This is pretty solid. Okay. Let me show you. Multiplication, and then division. So in every case, I did the opposite operation that the number was attached to the letter with. And I did it on both sides. Because it's an equation, it's balanced. Everything I do to the left, I have to do to the right, in order to keep that balanced and to keep it equal. That equal sign is the most important sign that you will ever have in math. You are basically forcing everything on the left-hand side of an equation to equal everything on the right-hand side. You've made it be one very solid condition. So you can't have multiple numbers with this. And because of that, everything you do to the left, you have to balance out and do to the right. So in a two-step equation, 3a minus 1 is equal to 5. What I've done to a to get to 5, the first thing I did to a, and I think of it like a journey for the variable. I have this number, I multiply it by 3, then I subtract 1 away from it to get to 5. In order to solve that, I need to back that up and do the opposite operations and do it in the opposite order. So think reverse order of operations. So the last thing that I did to a was subtract 1. So the first thing I want to do to a is add 1 to both sides. And I'm left with 3a is equal to 6. Then it becomes a one-step equation. And then just divide both sides by 3. End up with a is equal to 2. So if you think about it as reverse order of operations, what's the last thing you did to the variable before you made it equal something? Will be the first thing that you do, and you'll do that opposite operation. So the last thing I did to n was add 7. So the first thing I'm going to do to n is subtract 7. I end up with n divided by 5 is equal to -5. And then to get n by itself, I want to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 1/5, which I know is just 5. I end up with n is equal to -25. Sometimes you'll get them looking like this. It's still a two-step equation. But the setup down here is different from the setup up here. So this was n divided by 5 plus 7. This is n plus 2 divided by 2. So the last thing I did to n was divide by 2. So the first thing I have to do to n to get it by itself is to multiply by 2. And I'm left with n plus 2 is equal to 8. If it helps, put parentheses around that and treat that as one term for now. Just everything inside the parentheses you can move around. That's actually a little trick that's going to come in handy when you hit Algebra 1 and you start working with factors that look like that and polynomials and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So it's a really good thing to keep in mind and handy. So n plus 2 minus 8, or I'm sorry, n plus 2 is equal to 8. Subtract both sides by 2 and I'm left with n is equal to 6. Now we get into multi-step equations. You've got 1 and 2 step equations. Multi-step equations are just equations that have more than 2 steps. They can have 3, they can have 10, they can have 20. This is a 3-step equation in multi-steps. So I look at x and I build a story from x. I have this number x, I subtracted 2 from it, divided that whole thing by 4. Then I added 1, and I ended up with negative 5. So the first thing I want to do is reverse that order and take away the last thing that I did to n, or x, before I got to negative 5, and that's just subtracting 1 from both sides. I'm left with x minus 2 all over 4 is equal to negative 6. And then it looks exactly like this one over here. Multiply by 4 on both sides. X minus 2 is equal to negative 24. Then I add 2 to both sides. And I have x is equal to negative 22. If I take negative 22 and plug it back into my original equation, I should get negative 5. If I don't, then I have something went wrong. Okay? I made a calculation error somewhere, or I recorded the answer wrong, and I can go back and check my work. Am I going too fast? You okay? Sometimes I have an equation with variables on both sides. What I want to do is to get all the variables on one side and all the constants or coefficients on the other, or numbers. And I'm going to put all the d's this way. So I subtract 3d from that side, and it crosses out over there, becomes 0. 7d minus 3d is 4d, minus 13 is equal to 7. Now I want to move my 13 over to this side. That crosses out. I'm left with 4d is equal to 20. Once I've done that, now I have a simple one-step equation, right? Do this? Equations on both sides? Okay. If you want me to slow down and go over anything, just let me know. Again, you'll have lots of resources online through Schoology to help you out. So multi-step is day 4. So you'll see this on Thursday. And you'll see that one on Thursday too. Now comes everybody's favorite. type that. Okay, word problems, day 5. So how old am I if 500 reduced by 4 times my age is 292? What's the very first step you do when you get a word problem? Anyone? Very first thing you do when you get a word problem.
Write out a number. Oh.
It's even more basic than that, and it's one that everybody forgets.
Read the problem again.
Read the problem. You see a word problem, read it. Don't do anything. The very first step is to read it. Read it until you find out what you're looking for, what you're trying to discover. So how old am I if 500 reduced by 4 times my age is 292? What am I looking for?
How old you are?
How old I am. Okay. Step 2 then is to go back and highlight all of the pertinent information that you need. Now here's the thing with word problems. Sometimes they're going to throw you information that you don't need. When you read it and you identify what you are looking for, that'll help you focus a little bit on the information that you need. This is a word problem where all the information up here is pertinent to solving the problem. But you're going to get some, and every math teacher will do it. You're going to get some where it's going to talk about speed and rate and velocity, and you're looking for like the name of the bus driver, right? I love word problems like that. You're like, really? So 500 reduced by 4 times my age, 292. Reduced by is a key term that indicates to me subtraction. Okay? So in there somewhere, I'm going to subtract. 500 reduced by 4 times my age is 292. Is also a key word for equals. So I have my ending amount and I have my starting amount, which is 500. So my ending amount is 292. My starting amount is 500. And I'm going to reduce 500 by 4 times my age. And I'm going to make my age be my variable A. I just wrote an equation. I just translated that word problem into an equation. Now I can solve it. That looks like a 2-step equation to me. So let's solve it. Subtract 500 from both sides. That crosses out. I end up with negative 208 is equal to negative 4a. Divide both sides by negative 4. And I end up with positive 52. Because my negatives cross out. So I'm 52. I'm not really, but that's the word problem. So the very first step you do is read the word problem. Steph sold half her comic books and then bought 15 more. She now has 38. How many did she begin with? What am I looking key information that I need? Or what am I looking for? What am I trying to solve?
How many comic books should she be getting?
Yep, I'm looking for her starting amount of comic books. I'm going to make that my variable C. So she sold half her comic books. So whenever I see the word half, I always think of dividing by 2, right? You have something, you're dividing by 2. And then bought 15 more. When I see the word more, I think of addition. Okay, so if you look for those key terms in there, you can start to build your equation. And she now has 38. So we have an ending amount of 38. So 38 is what I'm going to start with. Equals. So she started with C and then divided it in half. And then she added 15 more to her collection. I now have an equation I can solve. It's a 2-step equation. I'll subtract both sides. With 15, that crosses out. This ends up with 23 on this side. It's equal to C divided by 2. To get C by itself, I multiply both sides by 2. I have 46 is equal to C. So step started with 46. She sold half of them, added 15, and ended up with 38. If I plugged 46 back into that equation, it would work. Or back into my original problem, it would work. Any questions on that? Okay. I think that's it. Like I said, on the 1 and 2 step equation day, you have the extension problem with inequalities. You don't need to do it, but when I tell you that there are as many inequalities as there are equalities or equations out there in math, and there are a lot in real life that you see out there, it's really important to understand how to solve for inequalities as well. And that's it. Do you guys have any questions? Yep. Okay, so you're working on your laptop, right? Did you have any tech issues at all this week? No? Okay. Having an issue with the iPads, and they're not reading IXL because they're opening up a web browser within IXL. So if you have any tech issues, let me know. And I think we figured out a way for you guys to get around IXL. And as I said before, if IXL is not allowing you to submit anything, just move on to the PDFs, open those up and work on those. It's the same sort of problems. There's always an answer key attached to the back. So it's very, just move on, open it up, work on those, do the work in your notebook. You decide how much you want to practice, how much you think you need to practice. For some people, 1 and 2 step equations, they struggle with, but they can really see multi-step equations. For some people, they get distributed property, but they don't get combining like terms. So you decide how much practice you think you need. Right? And as always, there is an answer, a quiz at the end of the week. I sent out a doodle form for you guys, but it looks like everybody's in some sort of summer camp this week. So daytime hours probably won't work for anyone. I sent out a new doodle form with night office hours. I'm just gonna be live. I'm gonna be sitting at probably at my home, at my desk, or at Panera. I will be live on Google Hangouts in case you have any questions that you want to ask me live. So you're not emailing me and waiting for an answer if you have anything. But I just wanted to pick a good time for people. You don't need to be there. It's just, you know, you're sitting there, you're like, Ms. Broderick, I know is live at Google Hangouts, I'm gonna go over and ask her a question. But you don't need to be there. I'm just gonna be available. So if you get a chance to do that new doodle form, please do so. And I can pick a time this week and let you know. I'm gonna do one next week. Next week, I'm not available during the day, so it will be a nighttime. Any questions?